Hello, Professor. I did my media representation challenge on the 2008 film The Duchess, starring Keira Knightley. She portrays Georgina Spencer, the wife of William Cavendish, the 5th Duke of Devonshire. So at 17 years old, Georgina is married off to a man who is almost 10 years older than her. In the opening of the film, her mother and father, they are meeting with the Duke. They're going over all of Georgina's qualities. She speaks multiple languages, and that having a male heir would not be an issue for Georgina. So while this film focuses on British aristocrats, the film omits characters that are not of the same culture and race. And due to this, it could make people believe that there were no people of a different color or a different culture during this time. The movie portrays Georgina as being intelligent, charismatic. I feel like she would be somebody that would, in this day and age, be called a girl's girl. But Georgina did struggle. She struggled emotionally. She struggled with producing a male heir. She struggled with her husband's open affairs, and even moving one of his mistresses into their home. One of the other struggles Georgina has later on in life is having an affair, becoming pregnant due to that affair, and then not being able to keep that child. So Georgina ultimately had to give up her child. So during this movie, there are a few things that definitely stuck out. One of them was the fact that in this particular time period, women did not have any voting rights. So while women attended rallies, they attended dinners, balls, for politicians or people that were running for politics. Women could not cast a vote on who they wanted in office. Due to this, and Georgina's high society status, the fact that she was very much loved, admired by a lot of people, I feel like Georgina used that and probably learned early on that she could use that influence that she had over people and help drum up support for the Whig Party. Another thing that I noticed was in one of the opening scenes after Georgina was married, on her wedding night, she was having a conversation with her husband, and she made a comment that dresses, wigs, were a way for women to express themselves. She points out to her husband, that men have so many other options and ways to express themselves, but women, they only were limited to very few things that were socially acceptable. So hair, makeup, clothes, these were some of the very few ways that women in the late 1700s were able to express themselves. And while Georgina at that time, you know, was wealthy. She was influential. She came from the right family. She married the right husband. She had money. She did not have the ability to change her life due to her parents negotiated her marriage. So Georgina did not marry out of love. Georgina did not have one child because she wanted one child. Georgina's purpose in life, and a lot of women in this time, their purpose was to marry better, marry up, definitely marry rich, and to have male heirs. I feel like while I watched this movie before, I had never watched it. Going into it with some of the questions that I had from this class, certain things to look for, and the movie, well, I have watched it a dozen times. I had never thought it odd that there were no people of color. Even though I knew during this time, you know, there were still people that had slaves. There were still people of different colors, ethnicities, that were in poverty. I feel like a lot of these movies that are centered around aristocrats, they do not portray people that would have been considered less than aristocrats. So in other words, the people that mattered during that particular time period. So if I was somebody that, you know, had no idea what our country's history was, and seeing these movies for the first time, I would very much think that this is how it was, and that everybody was white and colored. They were either brunettes, they were blondes. I would not think that there were people that were darker skin color, that, or that came from different countries. I would very much be closed off to thinking that this is how people look like back then. This is what was normal. Women did as they were told. Women had children until they had sons, and that was kind of it. In one of the scenes, Georgina and her husband, they were talking about the man that Georgina had ultimately fell in love with, had an affair with, and had a child with. And her husband, William, was talking about this man, and he made a comment saying, that this man was a dreamer, and that this man's dreams were never going to come true. There was just, ultimately no way that any of these things were going to come true. And some of the things that Georgina and, the man that she ended up falling in love with, that they were wanting, was to make all men free, so that every man, regardless of their station, would have a voting Right. And I feel like if this is how people thought 200 years ago, and 200 years later, we still are having to fight for people who don't necessarily look like everybody else, try and fight for them to have a voice, not only a voice, but to be recognized as equal, and in some sense, recognizing everybody as being a human being, people that are deserving to live in a place where they are accepted and that they have the same rights as everybody else. So I do want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to um, have this challenge, to ask these questions over things, movies that I've seen a dozen times, maybe even more, but really look at my surroundings, the news, movies, in a completely different other light. Thank you.